Jen, I know you weren't allowed to watch Harry Potter as a kid, but from what you do remember, what's your most memorable part of Harry Potter?
Okay, I'm gonna sound like such a noob. There's like the girl in the bathroom and she's like dead.
Moaning Myrtle?
Yeah, her.
That's it? I love that. I'm over here waiting for like more. No, that's it.
I don't really remember a whole lot.
Well, I remember a whole lot. So, a little backstory for our beautiful audience is I had the belief that either Daniel Radcliffe was my long lost brother or I was going to marry him. It was one of the two, both equally problematic, especially since I was this like 12-year-old who was obsessed with him. And I mean, to be fair, he wasn't that much older. That was me growing up. I loved Harry Potter, lived, breathed it. I try not to be a Harry Potter adult because I feel like that's on the edge of like being a Disney adult, and I don't want to be labeled that way, but I do enjoy Harry Potter as much as the next person. Slytherin by choice, according to the very skewed quiz that you can take. But to narrow it in a little bit about what we're going to be talking today, we're going to be talking about the Harry Potter's legacy. You know, he's the boy who lived. But there's a little bit of a darker story to Harry Potter, the life of Robert Knox, who we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to the Decomposing Flower podcast. I'm your host, Kira, and with me is Jen. Everything that we say in our podcast is stuff that we have gathered from trustful sources, the internet, so take that with a grain of salt. We do try our best to find the most accurate information as possible, but there's always the possibility we get something wrong or we just mispronounce things because English is our first language and apparently we don't know how to speak other languages that well. Luckily, today's case takes place in Kent, England, or just kind of England in general. So hopefully I won't mispronounce anything. But if you want to contribute to the conversation, please join us in the comments down below. We always love to hear what you had to say. And today we're going to be talking about murder. So if you're not in the right headspace to hear about that, you can definitely skip this episode, check out another one, and we'll catch you in the next episode. But let's get into it. Robert Knox was born August 21st, which is really close to my birthday, but not the same year as he was born in 1989 in Kent, England. His parents were named Sally and Colin. And to understand his life a little bit, we have to look beyond what the tabloids say he is. Simply, he's just known as Harry Potter actor or guy who was in Harry Potter. He was more than just what his role was. Within his local community, he was so talented. He was a dedicated rugby player to the Sydney Cup Rugby Association. He was a practicer of martial arts. He was often described as larger than life, but he was still just big man with the heart and soul of a teddy bear. He was amazing. He was very sturdy. He was a natural on the rugby pitch. And his dream was to be on the big screen. His journey through the entertainment industry followed a classic trajectory of just insane perseverance. He began acting at the age of 11 and he secured roles in lots of British TV, primarily in a police show named The Bill. There was also a reality program called Trust Me, I'm a Teenager, and another comedy show called After You've Gone, where he worked alongside some pretty notable co-stars. These roles were a training ground where he was later to refine his craft and end up on the set of a major blockbuster, which we're probably using in the title as Harry Potter. But he's served in a whole bunch of things like Silence of the Clams and King Arthur. But his biggest roles were playing Marcus Belby in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. He was also assigned for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. In late 2007 was when he finally reached this huge cinematic cornerstone and kind of turning point in his career where he played a Ravenclaw student where he was very significant to the plot. He was a nephew of Damocles Belby, the inventor of the Wolfsbane potion, and he was an inductee into Horace's Slughorn's Slug Club. His pivotal moment, this was going to be his big breakout role, as he was going to appear in the two-part finale. And this was a pretty big deal. A lot of people in and around the 90s grew up with Harry Potter, and for him to be a part of this was amazing. He was a young actor from Southeast London who joined Harry Potter, and this was a huge deal for him. On set, he was known for his humor and his patience. During the iconic dinner party scene, director David Yates recalled Knox had to eat a bowl of pudding to achieve the right comedic effect. Despite the physical discomfort of repeated takes, Knox remained dedicated to the craft, earning him the respect of veteran actor Jim Broadbent, who played Slughorn, and co-star Tom Felton, who we might know as Draco Malfoy. Felton would later recall that they used to muck about in the parking lot between takes, and this was just boys enjoying life before tragedy struck. The story of Rob can't be told in just this tiny little vacuum, as there was a whole bunch happening in London in 2008. The year was defined as a terrifying escalation in violence that dominated the British press at the time, coining the term Blade Britain. By the time Knox walked into the Metro bar on the night of May 23rd, he was entering a city that was already in turmoil. He was the 14th teenager about to be murdered in London in the first 5 months of 2008. Just 2 weeks prior to his death, another Sidcup local, Jimmy Meezine, had been murdered in an unprovoked attack. Both boys were incidentally members of the same rugby club, a coincidence that highlighted just how random and senseless this whole thing was. There was a growing crisis as the UK government had yet to act as far as introducing mobile metal detectors in high-risk areas. The fatal encounter on May 24th was not spontaneous, but it was a culmination of a grudge harbored by Carl Bishop, a 21-year-old who was located in Sidcup. Carl was a man characterized by the prosecution as someone who regularly carried knives. Yeah, he was already known to police for having a violent criminal record that already included another prison sentence for a knife attack in 2005. He had this growing rage that reached a breaking point a week before the murder. Around May 18th, Carl had been involved in a scuffle at the same Metro bar involving a circle of Knox's friends. Witness states that Carl left that night and made a statement saying, "I'm going to come back next week and someone's going to die." So instead of just being a spontaneous act, this could have been premeditated. Despite his threat, Carl was not detained. He was able to return home to arm himself with 2 ordinary kitchen knives, one of which would end someone's life. At the time of the murder, Carl was actually under investigation for a separate robbery and burglary involving a knife. Due to what police would later admit procedural failures, he had not been arrested or even questioned for these prior offenses, leaving him free to carry out the threat at the bar and later ending someone's life. On the night of May 23rd, it was supposed to be a celebration. Rob Knox was out with his 18-year-old brother Jamie and their circle of friends, celebrating the end of his work on Harry Potter in the same Metro bar in Sidcup. While it was very popular, it was also known for having a bit of a darker edge. There were a lot of bar fights. There were karaoke nights at the same time, and the management style was to lock the door whenever there was trouble. As the clock passed midnight, Carl arrived, armed with his 2 knives hidden out of sight, and he was already in a rage when he appeared. The confrontation moved from the interior of the bar to the pavement outside. Carl first targeted Jamie, which was Rob's brother again, threatening him at knife point. Witnesses, including Rob's friend Tom Hopkins, saw the danger immediately. He attempted to intervene, but it was Rob who took the step in between. Rob didn't run from the knives. He ran towards them in order to shield his brother. In the chaos that followed, several witnesses described the whole scene as a madman running crazy. Rob was stabbed 5 times. The most severe was a severed artery in his chest. Despite the catastrophic nature of his injuries, Rob's friends held him as he laid on the sidewalk, dying. One friend, Callum, looked into Rob's eyes and remembered him saying, "I need help. I need you to help me." There were also 4 other men who were wounded trying to stop him from the attack. There was Dean Saunders, who was 23. He was stabbed in the neck as, with an evil grin, Carl proceeded to stab him, and he got permanent spinal damage. There was Andrew Dahmer, who was 17. He was also stabbed in the chest while trying to get the knife away. Charlie Grimley, who was 17, sustained wounds to his cheek and arm. Nicky Jones, who was 20, was struck in the hand as he attempted to block a blow. Rob was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too extensive. He was pronounced dead at approximately 1 a.m. The boy, who had just spent weeks filming the most life-changing movie of his life, had fallen victim to an unseen rage within just a boy. The subsequent trial of Carl in early 2009 provided a chilling look into the mind of a violent offender. Carl showed no remorse throughout the proceedings. Police officer Craig Reed testified that Carl was informed that he was being charged with murder, and his only response was, "Yes, sweet." This lack of empathy was further highlighted by the fact that Carl seemed more concerned about missing a boxing match than the life of Rob, who he had taken. During the trial, the defense argued that Carl had acted in self-defense and that the victims had run into his knife. Yeah, oops, they tripped and fell onto my knife multiple times. However, the prosecution, luckily, was very competent, and it was led by Brian Altman, who quickly dismantled this narrative, pointing to the premeditated threat that had been made the week prior and the fact that Carl had gone home and brought 2 knives to the same bar to settle the score. And also, you just don't walk into a knife repeatedly. It's just not a thing. Carl's behavior in the courtroom was disgusting. Especially, it was very haunting for Rob's father, Colin, as Carl was smiling at friends in the gallery. He giggled during sensitive testimony and also refused to hear the victim impact statement from Rob's family. The judge handed down 4 concurrent life sentences, ensuring that Carl would serve at least 2 decades before even being considered for parole. When Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince eventually premiered in London on July 7th, 2009, the event was in a shadow, as they were all too aware that Rob was absent. However, the cast and crew transformed the red carpet into a platform for advocacy to honor their fallen colleague and take a stand against the violence that killed him. The entire cast, including Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Bonnie Wright, wore white ribbons on their sleeves. Daniel said, "I won't pretend that I knew him incredibly well, but I knew him, and I liked him. And what happened to him was obviously tragic and awful." For Bonnie, the white ribbons were a symbol of solidarity for all victims of knife crime. This moment was significant as it connected this larger-than-life wizarding world to the harsh realities of urban Britain and what was going on. And it was a terrible waste of a life. Rob had so much more potential that he wanted to show the world, but he never got the chance to. Following the trial, Sally and Colin dedicated their lives to ensuring their son didn't just become another statistic. They established the Robert Knox Foundation, which focused on 2 primary pillars: anti-knife crime education and supporting young talents in the arts, just like Rob would have wanted. The foundation's work was extensive and community-driven. They fund street pastors and beach pastors who patrol local areas to de escalate any sign of conflict. They also created the Rob Knox Film Festival, and it's an annual event in which young filmmakers who otherwise might not ever be able to show their work to the public finally have the chance to. Most impactfully, Sally and Colin personally visit schools, youth groups, and young offender institutions to share Rob's story, focusing on choices that young people can make in order to keep themselves and their community safe. The foundation also went on to produce a short film called Cold Kiss, which served as a narrative exploration on how knife crime affects families. Hollywood star Ray Winstone worked with Rob on King Arthur and took the lead role for free, donating his own money to help finish the project. In the film, Rob's brother, JB, appeared alongside Ray, delivering a powerful message, saying, "A knife on the table is not dangerous. Once you pick it up and carry it, it becomes dangerous." In 2021, the documentary The Rob Knox Story was released, directed by Rob's close friend, Aaron Truss. They also made a reference to Rob's surname Knox and the spell Knox in Harry Potter, which extinguishes light, which is just the film shows that there's the behind the scenes of Rob's life as a child, as there's a bunch of home videos, his original audition tapes, and behind the scenes footage that he filmed on his own phone while he was behind the scenes on Harry Potter. The documentary features a bunch of people who knew him reflecting on Rob's potential and the life that was all too quickly stolen. This story doesn't end here, however. His legacy as Marcus is frozen in time on Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Every time a viewer watches the dinner scene of the Slug Club and see a young man on the precipice of reaching his dreams and goals, I hope that they're able to see a vibrant, funny, and amazing man whose life was snuffed out all too quickly. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at in today's case. I know that the family was trying to release a new documentary called Knox 16 years later in 2025, and I don't know if it was released or not, but that's where we're at in today's case. Hopefully that the choice to protect the ones that we love is the most powerful magic of them all, and that's what I can leave you with. If you have any case suggestions, you can always give us a suggestion in our Google document that we have in our description. Join the conversation down below. We always love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.